Alright, guys, so we don't really have anything to talk about today, to be completely honest with you, so we're gonna steal somebody else's content, baby. Let's go.
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
Nothing goes.
What is this?
True. What even is
Hi, my
that?
name is Sydney. Welcome back to Hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Raycon. And of course, by my company, Lions Tea Exchange. I've only got a few boxes left of the peppermint white chocolate, so if you'd like to give the two remaining...
What accent is that? Is that Canadian or is that Dutch or something? You're like weird, like vaguely European? Not vaguely. It is European, I just don't know what European country it is.
Flavors ago, they're still hanging on, they're still around. But like I mentioned before, I'm starting to work on my new spring blends at the moment, so I will be asking everyone for their feedback on flavors very soon. But in the meantime, grab yourself a box of my signature line. The tea is great to sip on in this wintry weather, and I've got some little bits and pieces coming down the pipeline for
I'm not cultured enough,
I will
unfortunately.
link everything in the description box as per usual. Now, full disclosure, everybody, I'm currently battling a major head cold at the moment, and today I actually feel the worst of all of the days. So to be perfectly honest with all of you, I don't particularly feel like being on camera, so the majority of this video will not have my face in it. So if you're new here, and this is the first video of mine that you've ever watched, just know that I'm usually on screen a lot more, and normally I'm a lot funnier. I don't feel particularly funny right now. So yes, I really don't feel all that great right now, but I wanted to get a video made, and again, for those of you who are new, I'm usually a lot better at this YouTube thing. Also, big thank you to my friend Brandon Morris, who writes for Red State and also has his own YouTube channel, because he helped a lot with me making this video, so go and check him out. I will link him in the description box. He also made a video about Snow White as well that I think you should all go and watch, so go do that, go show him some love, because I'm not sure that I could have gotten this done if it weren't for him. Get you some friends that take pity on you in your weakened state. It's quite useful. Anyway, now that Disney's Snow White remake is only a couple months away...
Simp? Simp alert?
Company has started blessing us with more and more trailers, showing us what we can expect from the film. And as you guys know at this point, because I've talked about it a lot in other videos, I am not going into this with high expectations at all. And frankly, I'm not sure that anyone else is either. At this point, as most of you know, Disney has been fighting an uphill battle with this movie since day one. From the massive backlash towards the casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White, to their decision to include 7 magical people instead of the 7 dwarves, to them then backtracking and replacing the magical people with horrific CGI abominations of the dwarves when they could have just cast little people in the first place. And lately, and I personally love this one.
Yeah, I don't even understand the decision with the dwarves. Like, I don't... it's just like, I don't even understand how that's like woke. Like, or what I mean is like, I don't understand how, like, what rationale you would use to think that it would be less offensive to use CGI dwarves. It doesn't make any sense. It's also like, surely it's more expensive to do CGI dwarves than to just have real little people, isn't it? Like, I don't even understand. I don't understand it at all whatsoever. It's so weird.
We found out that Snow White's name is because she was born in the snow, not because of her skin color. I hate it here. But as the film's release date draws closer...
That's a retarded thing to get mad about. Like... Yeah, this is my thing, right? Like, I don't understand this... I don't understand this, like... the level of like media analysis that people have where they're just like, this was how it was in the old thing, and now in the new thing they changed something slightly, and that's bad because it's different from the way it was before. And it's just like, do you not realize that the original Disney animated movies, like the entire premise of those classic Disney animated movies, was they would take folktales and then they would change it in order to make like whatever their new artistic vision is. Like taking a classic thing and then changing it to fit whatever agenda you have or whatever artistic vision you have. That is the inception of those classic Disney animated movies. They took the Snow White thing, made a bunch of changes, so that Walt Disney could better sell it to whatever the audience was at the time. Or maybe there were just changes made because whoever wrote those movies that's just the story that they wanted to tell. I don't understand like why I don't understand why people get mad at changes like that, especially something as innocuous as that. And then people, it's just like this, the level of like media analysis that people engage in is just so weird to me these days. Like, I don't know, like were there fans of the Snow White folktale back in 1930 whatever when they made the original Snow White movie that were going like, this isn't Snow White, this is Snow White in name only. Like were there like retards like that back in the day as well? I don't know.
Closer, I wanted to weigh in on why I believe that this movie will be yet another catastrophic failure for the company. And I think it's important to highlight why this is extra sad, given that the 1937 Snow White, the original Snow White, is really the animation, the full-length animation, that put Disney on the map in this capacity. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the flagship animation for the Disney of old, and it's kind of crazy to see what the Disney of now is doing to it. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
They're not doing anything to it. It's a new movie. They're not doing anything to the animated movie. That's also just like it's such a stupid perspective to have of like, they're ruining the original movie. It's like, no, they're not. Nothing is going to happen to the original movie. In the same way that nothing happened to the folktale when Disney made their animated movie. It's a new retelling of the story. That's just a stupid perspective, in my opinion.
Catastrophic failure that is going to be the 2025 Snow White film. And in addition to all of my regular disclaimers, like this video not being exhaustive and whatnot, just know that I probably have missed things on account of having a sick brain. Not sick as in deranged, sick as in mucus. Listen, that's an important qualifier in 2025. Leave me alone. But as per usual, before you once again board my hell gondola and together we traverse this lake of disappointment and tears and why are they doing this, let's hear from today's sponsor, Raycon. Hey you, I bet you have ears and like listening to things. Like murder podcasts for the ladies and Roman Empire podcasts for the lads. I actually have no idea what you guys like listening to. I'm sorry. But what if I told you that wireless calls and...
I feel like all of those like weird like white supremacist people that talk about the Roman Empire or whatever, like surely these are all like obese type 2 diabetic people that are just like they don't actually like, they're not cultured, or they don't care about the Roman Empire, they don't listen to classical music. Like surely these people aren't real. I don't think so, right?
Appreciation and general listening was about to get a whole lot more affordable with better quality. Well, it is, thanks to Raycon. Raycon Everyday Earbuds are great for all your listening needs because they offer premium audio no matter what you're doing. And their latest model is now better than ever with a 32-hour battery life, active noise cancellation, and it even lets you pair with 2 devices at once, which is really helpful if you don't want to have to keep
I used to be like, oh my gosh, wireless earbuds, these are so cool. And then I kind of realized that it's more inconvenient than anything. Like, I'm now at a point where I just like prefer to like, I just plug it into my phone and then it just works. I don't have to worry about it running out of battery or anything. Like I just plug the headphones into the phone and they work. I don't know. I think I'm kind of over wireless headphones.
And then relinking things. And lucky for us,
sorry, I'm not trying to undermine her sponsor deal. My bad.
At just half the price of other
buy her Raycon thing.
We have our own really cheap earbuds, so using
do
Raycon
it,
has been
because I'm stealing your content.
Is so much better. They actually fit into my tiny baby ears, and I love that I can charge them for 10 minutes and get 90 minutes of battery. And
wow.
2 things I really love are their cute protective case covers and the fact that Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee, no questions asked. So if you too are ready for a great pair of new earbuds, then click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/SydneyWatson for 15% off site-wide. Yes, that is right, 15% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/SydneyWatson. Now,
go do that.
A video a little while ago discussing the insufferableness of modern Disney princesses, and in that video, I talked about the historical context surrounding the 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs film. And although I am always hesitant to go over old ground, I do think it's really important to reiterate some of those points so that you too can understand the context.
Okay, this is just a critique of her video style. I mean, listen, she's like literally a million times more successful than I am, so who gives a shit what I have to say? But like, you don't need to give all of these qualifiers. Just talk about what you're going to talk about. Like, okay, I get it, you're sick. You don't have to keep on reiterating that you're sick. Okay, you made another video talking about this. You don't need to qualify that you made another video. Like, it's fine.
Film was made. Firstly, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which debuted in 1937, came at the tail end of the Great Depression, a period marked by severe economic hardship and widespread poverty following the 1929 stock market crash. During this time, the role of women in society was evolving. As men were laid off in the thousands, women began to enter the workforce in greater numbers, often taking up jobs in laundries, hospitals, canneries, and so on. The general sense at the time was one of gloominess, except for Hollywood. Believe it or not, the film industry experienced tremendous success during the 1930s because it was able to give weary, impoverished audiences exactly what they craved: escapism. While other industries were faced with severe challenges at the time, American cinema achieved unprecedented levels of cultural impact, and this was due in part to studios prioritizing comedies, musicals, and storylines signs the celebrated triumph in the face of adversity. When Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs finally made its debut, it was perfectly poised to provide more of this message. On the surface, it was a story that showed a young woman not only succeeding, but overcoming the evils around her. This was an inspiring message for 1930s America. I've seen other people mention that some of its success was due to the secondary characters, like the dwarves and the evil queen, who play their own very important roles for audiences. And this is something to broadly note about Disney in its golden era. It allowed for secondary characters to play pivotal and important roles, but more on that later. As I mentioned in my last video, where I went into the history of 1937 Snow White herself has been viewed as embodying the spirit of 1930s American women, reflecting not just the era's aesthetic, but its resilience. To once again quote...
Is that true? I feel like if you're saying that if you're saying that more women were going into the workforce at this time, isn't like Snow White the opposite of that? Because it's like the movie starts and she's just like chilling out in the castle, and then throughout the movie, like literally most of the movie is just her doing chores. It's just her hanging out in the like loitering. She's like sneaking into the dwarves' house and she's loitering in there. And like the majority of the movie is just her doing chores and her like bossing them around, telling them to do chores. It's like she's not even really overcoming anything. Like she doesn't beat the witch in some kind of clever fashion. Like the witch beats her. And then I think, if I remember correctly, I think the dwarves get revenge on the witch or something like that. I don't think Snow White does anything to overcome adversity. Because even at the end, it's like the prince just like sees her dead corpse and he's like, oh hell yeah, my necrophiliac desires are about to be satiated. And then he like kisses her dead corpse and then she wakes up. It's like, what does Snow White even overcome in the movie? I don't even know how that makes sense.
Art historian Carmenita Higginbotham, Snow White, while not a revolutionary figure, still demonstrates a spirited character who leverages her skills and traits. Her story, rather than endorsing a domestic role for women, might be better interpreted as an ode to simpler, less troubled times. After all, if you are in fact a woman in 1930s America, just struggling...
Wait, what?
Revolutionary figure still demonstrates a spirited character who leverages her skills and traits. Her story, rather than endorsing a domestic role for women, might be better interpreted as an ode to simpler, less troubled times. After all, if you are in
I get what
America,
that means.
Just struggling to get by, why wouldn't you want a prince to come along and sweep you off your feet? And if you are a 1930s man without a job that's struggling to feed his family,
but it's like the prince doesn't even like sweep her off of her feet. Like he shows up at the beginning and then he like sexually harasses her. Like no offense, but like Rachel Zegler is not wrong about that. And then they don't interact for the rest of the movie. Like, when does he sweep her off of her feet? He just so the prince like weirdly harasses her at the beginning of the movie. They don't interact for the rest of the movie. Like they literally have no relationship. They have no connection. There's no chemistry there. There's nothing. And then like at the very end of the movie, he decides to satiate his necrophiliac desires and kisses her dead corpse, and then she like magically wakes up. And then I guess sure at that point like they live happily ever after. But is that sweeping her off of her feet? Like, I don't know.
and having sent his wife off to the Canaries, wouldn't you want to be the man doing the sweeping? I think that we can confidently say that yes, you would. The second important thing to note is what 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs meant to Walt Disney himself. During the 1930s, full-length animated films were virtually non-existent. Animations were only a few minutes in length and often played in theaters before the feature production. These animations for Walt Disney Productions were extremely popular, but Walt wanted to expand. For some time, he'd already been considering doing a feature-length animation, but finally settled on the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, Sneewittchen. I think that's how that's pronounced. I'm not sure. Anyway, it means Snow White, and that became the basis for his film. Years earlier, he had been inspired by a 1916 hour-long silent film about the same story. It seems that once his mind was made up, there was no shifting him from this idea. Walt Disney knew that his film would be an important project, despite those around him arguing otherwise. The project was viewed with such skepticism and negativity, it was even nicknamed Disney's folly, as other Hollywood folk expected it to be a catastrophic failure. Nope, they were about 100 years too early for that judgment. Walt Disney was undeterred. In an effort to get his team on board, he reportedly spent 4 hours acting out the entire Snow White story.
2 cents a piece, which was a lot of money, the equivalent of at least $10 now, to have a nice dinner and to come back to the studio where he related by himself the whole Snow White story. He acted all the parts, he even indicated the songs, he had the characters, everything in this Snow White picture was completely developed in his own mind.
Then, with everyone's approval, he poured years of his life, almost $1.5 million, and the future of his company into what would later become a box office success. It's important to note that Walt Disney wanted to do more than just tell a story about a girl and an evil queen. He wanted to bring the world around that girl to life. The film was made at a time when animation required detailed frame-by-frame work, with every additional element taking days or sometimes weeks to animate. Disney envisioned a film where every inch of the screen was full of life. From the foreground to the background, he ensured that frames were packed with movement. Walt Disney and his team ended up using several new techniques in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, such as larger animation cells to ensure all artistic
Are these
details
like
were included,
the... or these like the animators that didn't he work his animators down to the bone? It's just funny seeing them go down the fucking the line like this.
Using what is called
I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where like you even hear it today where it's like, oh, they overwork the animators and whatnot, and it's like, I mean, I do wonder like, at what point is it like overworking your animators, or they're just being the realities of how much effort it goes into making something like a movie. Like I can't like I've done like very minimal like short films stuff. It's not even worth talking about. And it was mostly for like school or whatever. And it's like there's no like work-life balance when you're doing something like that. So I do wonder about I now listen, at the end of the day, should studios be doing everything in their power to make it as easy, or not as easy, but like as they should be doing everything in their power to facilitate a work-life balance. But I know that you get like these articles that come out that talk about, oh my gosh, these animators are being overworked and what yada yada yada, and it's like part of me just wonders, it's like, is it possible really, like realistically, to not have to put your all into your animation? I don't know. I'm not sure. And then the main thing is like, are they then like well compensated? That's like the main primary thing.
Plane camera, which gave the illusion of 3 dimensions by placing several layers of drawing, one behind the other, and moving them separately. This was a definite game changer from the side-scrolling 2D animations to which audiences had grown accustomed. Although early viewers might not have recognized the technical intricacies behind the film's magic, they still would have noticed scenes like Snow White running terrified through the forest. Here, the branches seemed to be grabbing at her, and the ominous eyes in the shadows were eventually shown to be those of benign forest creatures. The trees in this scene were not just static elements, but actively part of the storytelling. All of this to say, Walt Disney took a real chance on producing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it was a resounding success. And really, without her, without the prince, the dwarves, and the evil queen, Walt Disney Productions might never have taken off like it did. Like I have pointed out in other videos, Disney films were a product of the time, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was no exception. So the question then becomes, if this film was once so well received by audiences, then why is the modernized 2025 version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs destined to fail? Well, I think that there are a few reasons for that. The 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was hugely anticipated by the public, while 2025 Snow White has been slated as a failure before it's even hit cinemas. Not to mention, it's been embroiled in controversy since day one. Disney had already primed audiences to be disappointed with its live-action remakes, especially after so many had fallen flat for so many of the same reasons. Weird CGI, and honestly guys, that's putting it pretty mildly. Inappropriate casting choices, also putting it fair.
I mean, it's just like, I think like some of these things are like obviously like some of these things are valid, right? Like obviously like if you find the past movies to be like not very good, then you're not going to look forward to the next one. Like that just makes sense. But I just don't understand being obsessed with race when it comes to castings. Like this has always been my perspective on it. I've talked about it in the past, but unless race plays like a key central role in how the character plays into the story, right? Then I just don't care if you race swap. So, Batman, I think you can make him black. Who cares? Doesn't really matter. If you were going to do a remake of To Kill a Mockingbird, however, well, kind of got to keep Atticus Finch white, because the whole point of that character is that he is the only white lawyer in his town that is willing to represent a black man. So like when I look at The Little Mermaid, it's like yeah, it doesn't matter if she's black. It's not a thing. Like who cares? With Snow White, it's like in the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think in the movie they ever even I don't think they mentioned that her skin was white as snow, and that's why they named her Snow White. I don't even think, I think that's, when people say that, that's a line from the Brothers Grimm fairy tale. It's not from the Disney animated movie. And even still, just looking at the story of the Disney animated movie, nothing about it has to do with her being white. So you can easily do a race swap in that situation, and it doesn't matter. So I don't know. And by the way, just to be clear, like I don't think people actually care about this. I think it's literally just culture war retardation, right? Like I was actually, I remember I was like reading about it one day, and apparently like the Adam West Batman, apparently they just like race swapped Catwoman mid-show. It's not even a thing where it's like a reboot. Apparently It's the same character, but they just replaced her with a black. They replaced the actress with a black lady. And like apparently, it wasn't a big deal in the 1960s. Or I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe Batman fans were mad when that happened, but it's just weird. And it's also like, have you noticed that like people only care about it when when they feel like they can like when they feel like they can utilize it for their like agenda or whatever, right? So like when you look at like the live action Disney remakes, they're like, look, these movies are like kind of bad and they weren't well received. Look, see, audiences they don't like race swaps. But then you look at something like The Last of Us where they race swap Joel and Tommy and Maria, but that was like largely successful. So nobody even talks about the race swaps in that show because it would be inconvenient to their narrative. That's also some of the thing that I've noticed with a lot of these like anti-woke people. So I don't know. Who cares about race swaps? Is my opinion.
Very mildly, terrible writing and corporate feminist narratives have been accepted as the norm in most of these films. So when a Snow White remake looked like a serious reality, viewers were already anticipating more of the same. And our first real introduction to what the film was going to be.
The other problem with like Snow White is that the original movie just kind of sucks. Like it's like I mentioned before, right? Like it starts off with Snow White being sexually harassed. Then like the vast majority of the movie is just her hanging out in the dwarves' house, bossing them around, telling them to do chores. And then like the climax of the movie is incredibly rushed and it just ends. Like there's nothing interesting about Snow White. She doesn't have like dreams or aspirations that you can really tap into. The evil queen isn't an interesting, like they're like none of the characters are interesting. They don't have interesting motivations. So it's also one of those weird things where it's like, if you're going to do a remake of Snow White in 2025, it's like you do have to significantly change the story. Or like at the very least add to it so that it's like at least interesting, right? So like I think that's also one of but it's just like the trap that Disney is in where like if they do that, then you're going to have like retards on the internet that are going to be like, this is different than it was in the original movie and I just want to watch the same thing over and over again. I don't want new things. I just want to consume the same piece of media that I consumed before. It's like, so I don't know, like in some sense you can't win. And then obviously people are going to be like, oh, this is feminist. This is a girl boss. Snow White bossing around the dwarves in the original animated movie. That's not feminist power fantasy. That's not her being a girl boss. But now whatever they do with Rachel Zegler, that's going to be feminist. And it's just retarded. It's just so stupid.
Came from leaked set photos of the lead actress in costume, a woman called Rachel Zegler, whose name I also sometimes say as Zegler, and honestly, I might just alternate between the two, and I'm not sorry about it. We also got to see images of the 7 dwarves, who were not really even dwarves at all, but rather an assortment of what I can best describe as...
I want to see this movie, okay? Release the non-dwarf cut.
mental illness personified. The bizarre thing here was that Disney's replacement of the 7 dwarves seemingly came about for no other reason than little person actor Peter Dinklage complaining about the use of dwarves in the film, calling it effing backward.
But it's also just like, people keep on blaming Peter Dinklage, but... he didn't make the fucking movie. Like, why are we blaming Peter Dinklage? I feel bad for Pete. It's like people keep on blaming him for the movie, and it's like he didn't make it. Like what?
Oh, really, Peter? Please, no, really, just tell us more. Needless to say, Rachel Zegler's casting and no dwarves set the tone for what was to come, and it really set people's blood on fire. On the one hand, Disney was proud to have cast a Latina actress as Snow White, while viewers were upset about the perceived race swap. After all, Snow White's name is literally...
Also, Rachel Zegler she's like half white, so this is also the weird place where you get to with these like with like this obsession with race and characters, where it's like now you're having all these people have to come out and be like, you know, Rachel Zegler, I'm sorry, but she's not white enough. It's just like, like, what do you, like, that's just so weird. Be like, she's not white enough. Okay, she's not pure white. She's tainted by her Hispanicness, and it's just like, you guys are fucking unhinged.
Perceived race swap. After all, Snow White's name is literal and grounded in her appearance. She is originally described as a young woman with lips red as the rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow.
Yeah, by the way, she's described like that in the fairy tale. So it's not even they're not even adapting the fairy tale, they're adapting the movie. And then not only that, but if you're saying that it's important to do what's written in the fairy tale, then how come you're not criticizing the animated movie for all the changes that it made? So it's like they don't. This is the other thing, right? So it's like this weird like mentally ill paradigm that we're existing in, where it's like all the things that people like complain about that are done today were also done in the past, but because if something was done like before 2016, right, before Hollywood went woke, then at that point changes and artistic liberties, like that's all fine and dandy. But like post 2016, when all this retarded anti-woke stuff started popping up, at that point changes are bad. I mean, you have to be faithful to the original thing and yada yada yada, and it's just none of it makes any sense. It's all retarded.
7 adaptation stayed true to this description, while the 2025 remake clearly would not be following suit, because, navigating that for woke Disney would
Wait,
have
what
been
did you just
nine
say?
adaptations described as a young woman with lips red as the rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow. The 1937 adaptation stayed true to this description, while the 2025 remake clearly would not be following suit,
Oh, sure.
because, navigating that for woke Disney would have been a minefield. You can almost hear the activists crying. You might be wondering how Disney planned to get
Wait,
rid of
what did
white
you
as snow.
say?
The 1937 adaptation stayed true to this description, while the 2025 remake clearly would not be following suit, because, navigating that for woke Disney would have been a minefield. You can almost hear the activists crying. You might be wondering
What? Nobody would have cared if they cast a white actress as Snow White. It's only you people that care that they didn't. What are you talking about?
how Disney planned to get around this annoying little fact. Well, instead of adhering to Snow White's original appearance and ethnicity, Disney cast aside the skin white as snow component and replaced it with Snow White was born in the snow. No, I'm not joking. That's where they're going with this.
To honor the day I was born, my father named me Snow White.
This stuff is so dumb. Good lord. Now, while not everyone agrees the characters...
How is that any less dumb than naming somebody off of your skin color? Like, I don't understand. Like, how is that more dumb? Like, hey, I have an African American child. I guess I'll name him Cole Black, because coal is a thing that's black, and then I guess his last name has to be the color, so black. Yeah, Cole Black. It's like that's also pretty fucking retarded. Like, let's be real.
Me Snow White.
This stuff is so dumb. Good lord. Now, while not everyone agrees the characters should and must resemble the original source material, enough people do that this became an immediate issue. Like, no surprises there. And as an aside, while some of you might disagree with this, I think...
Yeah, it's just retarded. It's just like, who cares? Like, like that. You know what's so funny? What am I doing? Did I mess up my OBS? Okay, no, okay, whatever. Like, if you look up the Daily Wire one, right? Daily Wire Snow White. It's like even if you want to be like, oh my god, look, white is right. She's white. Oh my gosh, it's more accurate, I guess.
Once upon a time, but now that time is gone.
Like, she's not a very good singer. And it's like, on the other hand, like,
And now a special.
Bitter storm of snow. Is that a girl I'll ever know?
like Rachel Zegler, no offense, is like a way better singer than Brett Cooper or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I'd rather have a much more talented singer and actress, even if she's not fully white. Sorry that she's not white enough for you. Sorry that she's tainted by the Puerto Rican-ness. My apologies, but yeah, I'd rather have her than fucking Brett Cooper, who's literally only got the role because she's like a political propagandist or whatever for the Daily Wire. Which is also like, I'm actually kind of curious what's going to happen to that Daily Wire Snow White movie now that Brett Cooper is out of the picture. I wonder, is that going to get Batgirled? Are we going to see the Daily Wire, what is it, do like throw away the movie for like tax returns or whatever? I forget what the term is. That'd be hilarious.
think that Snow White being pale and fair-skinned is about more than appearance. The white, fair, pale thing is an allegory that ties into who she is. That's obviously a longer conversation for another day. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, maybe the fairest in the land thing not only refers to the most beautiful, but also the most fair skin. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching there, just ignore me. Also, it's worth remembering that only a few years earlier, people learned Disney had race-swapped the red-headed Danish Little Mermaid in their upcoming live adaptation, and now we know how well that all went down. So at this point, it was very clear what the company was.
I mean, the movie was still successful. It wasn't like, it didn't make like $1 billion, but like, it was still successful. And it's also, it's like, oh my god, like people have such like bare bones analysis of these things as well, because it's like they only look at it from the lenses of their political ideologies, where it's like, I want to say that the Little Mermaid remake, didn't that come out like, wasn't that like one of the first Disney movies post COVID and whatnot? So it's like, even with all of that, even with the apparent like awful black person that they cast or whatever, it still made a decent amount of money. So I don't know, but I will say we are also seeing just like it could also be a sign of just like people generally getting sick of the live action Disney remakes, because we also just saw Mufasa the Lion King come out, and it's not exactly blowing the doors down. It's still making more than Sonic 3, to be fair, but it's not making anywhere near the $1.5 billion that the first Mufasa made, and there isn't any weird politics going on with that, and that one is still not making a ton of money. So it's like, even if Snow White comes out and it bombs, it's like, is it necessarily because of people like don't want to see a Hispanic Snow White, or is it just because of a lack of general interest? But the thing is that no, like, sure, all of that stuff may be a factor, but these people aren't going to have a nuanced take on it, right? Like, they're not going to look at all the factors. They're just going to go, that's right, we're winning the culture war or whatever. Audiences, they wanted a white Snow White. When it's like they're not going to look at it from all angles. Like, let's just be clear.
Prioritizing, and that wasn't staying true to its own source material, but inappropriate.
Yeah, because that's fucking, who cares? Again, like, it's just like so weird that like it's okay for Walt Disney when he made his classic movies, it's okay for him not to stay true to the source material, but now for whatever retarded reason, post 2016, artists have to stay true to the source material. That's so important.
Physical casting could have been where this issue ended, had it not been for the fact that Rachel Zegler herself turned out to be an enormous public liability. In several widely circulated clips, Zegler said that she didn't like or watch the original film, called The Prince a Stalker, joked that they would cut her
based? She's not wrong. Like, she's not wrong. Like, just watch it. Just watch. Like, I feel like also a lot of the people that are like upset about this, about that comment, they just like haven't watched the movie recently. I watched it recently for the first time just because I was like kind of curious after all the hoopla. And it's like, she's not wrong. Like, the prince weirdly, he like weirdly like surprises her, and then she goes, ah, and then she runs away, and then the prince like follows her, and then she runs into her castle and locks the door or whatever. And then instead of taking the hint, being like, all right, well, I tried, gonna move on with my day, this like guy starts like singing at Snow White inside the castle. It's like, bro, take the hint. What are you doing? And like, that would be fine, I guess, if then like throughout the movie, like Snow White decides that, okay, yeah, I think I actually want to, I think I might have overreacted. Let me go approach this guy, maybe, start up a relationship. There's no relationship beyond that. They don't interact for the rest of the movie. And then at the end, this fucking freak, the prince or whatever, he just like kisses her corpse. Rachel Zegler is absolutely correct to say that it's weird. She's not wrong. It is a little weird. Now, I will say, should Rachel Zegler be saying that? Probably not. Like, you just shouldn't be criticizing the thing that you are doing that you're doing a remake of. Like, that's just dumb. So from a PR perspective, sure, I agree, she's dumb. But as far as the substance of what she said, kind of based. Not gonna lie.
From the remake and touch on how Snow White basically don't need no man. For a lot of people, me included, it was bizarre to watch one of Disney's actresses go on basically a...
By the way, I'm pretty sure I saw the clip that she just talked about where he said that they're gonna that they're gonna cut out all the scenes with her and the prince, and I don't think that's not what she said. She like she joked about that, but she never like said that they were gonna cut out the relationship. By the way, just notice, you gotta just this is just something to keep in mind when one of these video essayists, when they just say a bunch of things but they don't actually show the person themselves saying it. Kind of a red flag. Kind of a red flag.
Circulated clips, Zegler said that she didn't like or watch the original film, called Prince a Stalker, joked that they would cut all of his scenes from the remake, and touched on how Snow White basically don't need no man. For a lot of people...
Yeah, like just ask yourself why she's not actually playing the clips. You know, that is, just a bit of a red flag in my opinion.
Me included, it was bizarre to watch one of Disney's actresses go
Potentially dishonest.
Basically a national press tour where she publicly attacked the company's legacy work, the very work that Walt Disney built the foundation of his empire on and put the company on the map. Of course, her comments were not well received.
Based? It's a dog shit movie. It's not good. Sorry. It can be like revolutionary or whatever. Like it's an important piece of history for film. That doesn't mean that it's good. Okay? Sorry. Listen, it's fine. They didn't know how to make movies back then.
Are we surprised? No, not really. And instead of appealing to existing fans and potential new viewers, Zegler instead crystallized herself as a problem. Since then, she has only continued to dig her own grave, doubling down by calling those critical of her casting racist and misogynistic. She's even recently made disparaging comments about Trump supporters, but she eventually had to walk back. But bear in mind that Zegler's unpleasant commentary doesn't exist.
I mean, listen. I'm sorry, but okay, this is going to get a little political, but like I can't not say this. Again, by the way, she's not like show what she said. Like play clips of her saying these things. Show the social media post. Why are you weirdly just like not like just saying what she said instead of just playing what she said? Anyways, besides that, I remember what she had said was like when Trump won, she was like, "I hope Trump supporters don't find peace" or something like that. And it's like, is that maybe a bit of a inflammatory thing to say? Sure. Should you be saying that as the star of a $200 million movie that kind of needs those Trump supporters to go support it? Sure. From a PR perspective, shouldn't say it. But like, I remember when I saw all this happen, I remember like my brain kind of broke because I'm like, how is it that conservatives are holding Rachel Zegler to a higher standard than the president of the United States? Like, you voted for the guy that is all about inflammatory rhetoric. You voted for the guy that is all about like giving his opponents nicknames, mean names. You voted for the guy that's all about like falsely accusing Haitians of eating cats and dogs. Like, you defended that like comedian guy that called Puerto Rico a piece of shit island or whatever. Like, what? Why are we supposed to care that Rachel Zegler of all people said something kind of inflammatory? Like, I remember when I realized that like celebrities and people on the left are held to like a way higher standard than conservatives hold Donald Trump. I remember I was like, you know what? I can't even bring myself to give a shit that Rachel Zegler said that. Like, I just gotta be real. Until like conservatives start not being like kind of like absolute freaks, and until they start holding Donald Trump to like any sort of standard, like, can we just? Sorry, okay, I am getting political, I guess. But it's like he threatens to go to to like take Greenland by force. And then, like, immediately, instead of being like, all right, that was kind of retarded, Trump. Like, what are we even talking about? You see all these, like, conservative commentators being like, well, there are some advantages. They have natural resources. And it's like, hold on. One of the biggest defenses that I'd heard of Trump was that he hasn't started any wars. We hate war. War is bad. But now you're okay with Donald Trump starting war with one of our allies to get some country or state, or like get some new state that we don't need. Like, absolute, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care that Rachel Zegler said a mean thing about Trump supporters. I'm sorry. I can't care.
exist in a vacuum. It's representative of where Disney is at as a company and the incoming girl bossification of the Snow White film. One of the biggest issues that I have with Disney's princess remakes is in order to save these characters from the perceived damsel in distress trope, it inevitably forces them into an equally limiting girl boss trope. In an attempt to modernize its princesses and show them as strong, independent feminist women, Disney effectively strips them down to one-dimensional characters void of meaningful struggles, personality, and even the romance arcs that played an important role in the original animated films. And we know this is coming down the pipeline based on Zegler's description of her role in the film, making it abundantly clear that the original Snow White animation is undesirable and telling us directly that there is no love story here.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024.
Just to be clear, the original Snow White isn't about the love story. It's not, there is no love story. How I don't understand. I don't understand how like people even how do you watch the original Snow White? How do you watch the original Snow White movie and then somebody asks you to give them a description of it and you're like, "Yeah, it was a story about a girl trying to find true love." It's like, "No, it wasn't." That's not what it was about. If you want an accurate description of Snow White, it's about a girl that breaks into somebody's house and then bosses them around to telling them to do chores. That's really what the movie's fucking about. That's the majority. That's what the majority of the movie is.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Something that has always bothered me.
Yeah. Okay. So she actually played it. That's like obviously that's like a joke saying that all of his scenes are going to get cut. Like she's since come out and clarified that there's still going to be that the love story is still going to be there.
Which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's.
Oh yeah, see, oh god, she even said it like, look,
no love story here.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes.
Yeah, like that's obviously a joke. That's not her saying that. Oh my god, it's so stupid. Oh my god. But it's like on the one hand, it's like you have to like you Disney and like these studios, they obviously should start doing a better job of like PR training these actors. But you also just have to I have some amount of sympathy where it's like, dude, like the amount of like nitpicking and like taking things out of context and like let's be honest, it's performatively not understanding what you're trying to say in order to like paint it in the worst way possible or in order to like make it mean something else. It's like she's obviously joking about that, saying like, oh, maybe she finds love along the way, oh, maybe all of his scenes will get cut, who knows. Like she's not literally saying that they're gonna cut out all of his scenes or that there isn't going to be a love story. It's just, I don't know, like I'm sorry, but like if that's how you interpret that phrase, you're either dishonest or just media illiterate. I don't know what to tell you.
Could get cut. Who knows?
Something that has always bothered me is how this new wave of films acts as if romance and love takes away from a female protagonist. It's like every female lead has to be cold and heartless for her to be tough. Ironically, that's the opposite of what Snow White is. It's her kindness.
What is it? There's no love story in Snow White. Like, look, she's showing this. This is like the end of the movie. This is the first time they've like gazingly looked in each other's eyes. They don't have a relationship. There's no love story.
And warmth that makes her endearing and allows her to triumph. Walt Disney and his team knew this. Modern Disney seemingly views this as an impairment. Is that the right word? Maybe disability? Cripplement? Is that a word? Cripplement? It's a cripplement. And maybe this is an explanation for why these corporate feminist princess films have a tendency to sideline secondary characters who, like I mentioned earlier, are actually central to the storyline. Because why would the girl boss princess need anyone else when she can do it all herself? In this case, it's even in the name. The original film was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs because the dwarves are as key to the story as Snow White, maybe even more so in some cases. The new film is simply called Snow White because, as we know, it's going to be all about her. Relegating the dwarves to the sidelines is a massive disservice to the original animation and the original narrative that Walt Disney was trying to tell. To quote a great observation that someone left as a comment on one of my videos, and I'm very sorry for not naming you directly. I tried to find it and I can't, so if this was you who said this, you're very smart, a lot smarter than me. Congratulations, well done. Anyway, Snow White is treasured by these little men who see her as beautiful on the outside as she is on the inside, and it is through them that we get to know who Snow White is. They also play a key role in saving her and helping her grow. An example of her goodness is demonstrated through how she treats Grumpy, for example. To begin, he doesn't like her.
How does Snow White grow? She doesn't, like, what is her growth? What even is her character arc? She doesn't even have one. Like, no offense, but like Snow White in the original animated film, like she just doesn't have much of a character to her. Like she's just there. She's just like this thing that like where things just keep happening to her. She doesn't have any like active agency or anything. And to be clear, I'm not saying that she has to be a girl boss. Like if Snow White was like actively searching for true love, if she was like actively seeking out a prince, then sure, you could say that it's a story about true love and yada yada yada, but that's not even happening in the movie. It's like I don't even know like what character growth does she even have?
Standoffish, and he's even a bit rude. Snow White sees him as a man who needs love. In the scene where she bakes a pie, Snow White made this specifically for Grumpy, as a gesture of kindness. Over time, she wins him over, softening him and changing his overall demeanor. In the end, Grumpy is the first to lead the charge back to the house to rescue Snow. He is the first one chasing after the evil witch crone lady, and upon Snow White's death, he is the only dwarf to place a bouquet of flowers on her hands. Guys, that made me a little bit emotional.
Yeah, like, if anything, Grumpy is like the only character in the movie that I think even has an arc or any amount of character development. It's like everybody else is like pretty static. Like, what? No, like, you know, notice how she's like, yeah, it's Snow. This is all very important to Snow White's character arc, her arc, and then she goes on, and then the YouTuber lady, she goes on to describe Grumpy's character arc. It's because Snow White doesn't actually have a character arc of her own.
Saying that it's like my sick brain is giving me the feels. Oh my goodness. Snow White definitely made an impact on the grumpiest dwarf, and his life is forever changed because of her. But mark my words, absolutely none of this will make its way into this remake, and if it does, guys, I will be unbelievably surprised, because modern Disney simply doesn't leave room for this sort of nuance, and it's ironically nuance that was able to be depicted in a very short animated film from almost 90 years ago. Because Walt Disney nuance? Similarly to the dwarves, I'm extremely bothered by the idea that the prince in Snow White will be sidelined. What's not widely known is that Walt Disney originally
The prince was sidelined in the original movie. Like, the prince doesn't do anything for like the majority of the first movie. Honestly, I would imagine that the prince is probably going to play even more of a role in the remake. Like, I wouldn't be surprised because he's not even there in the animated movie.
Wanted the prince to have a much, much larger role. The trouble was, at the time, animators at the studio didn't have all that much experience drawing lifelike people. They weren't confident in their ability to do him and other humans in the film justice, so they felt it necessary instead to roll him back. I don't know why, but it's just...
She herself, like, how does she not realize how stupid this sounds? They're like, oh man, I hope they don't sideline him in the remake. Anyways, let me go on to talk about how he was already sidelined in the original animated movie, and if I actually gave a shit about being faithful to the original animated movie, then I would want him to be sidelined. What is this?
This makes me envision them drawing a bunch of Cronenberg people because they don't understand human form, and for some reason that's just hilarious to me. Anyway, originally, Walt Disney planned to have the prince by the evil queen, and then
that's a dangerous. You went dangerously close to saying something about little people. All right, settle down, Sydney Watson.
The woodland creatures. He also hoped that the prince would play a much greater role in trying to save Snow White. Ultimately, their lack of experience with human subjects just didn't allow for this to happen, which ironically opened a huge door for modern Disney. While I'm largely of the opinion that
what. It's so stupid. So all of this analysis is based on, well, obviously not even watching the fucking movie, but is based off of like that one throwaway line that Rachel Zegler had where, unless you're retarded, you would obviously know that she's joking about the prince getting all of his scenes cut. It's just like, I don't even understand. So at first she's saying that they need to remain faithful to the source material, to the animated movie, and now she's saying that they need to change the animated movie. But that change would be good, but like something that actively changes the story, that change would be good. But a change that doesn't even matter, that literally doesn't change like the story really in any meaningful way at all, that's bad because Hispanic lady bad. It's like none of this makes any sense. Literally, like everything is just culture war retardation. And I'm not even gonna sit here and say that this Sydney Watson person is like necessarily racist or whatever, and that she just hates Hispanic people. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Like, I honestly think that most of these people have just been completely brain rotted by the culture wars. You know what I mean? At least that's what I choose to believe, because, you know, why blame like malice when you can just blame retardation? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably what this is, but like, Jesus.
Most most of these remakes are completely unnecessary, perhaps this is the one and only time where modern Disney had the chance to tell the full story that Walt Disney couldn't. They could have given this prince a voice, a personality. They could have built on the ideas that Walt already had, but instead they did the exact opposite. Because in the world of girl bosses, princes are bumbling idiots, buffoons, and simply not of any use. Anyway, all of this to say that I hope you're seeing...
I don't even know. They absolutely could be giving the prince a larger role. They probably will. You're like, all of this is like, I mean, I already said this, but you're basing this off of a quote that you don't even really that you misunderstood, whether performatively or genuinely.
Seeing the pattern here. Doing the opposite of what Walt Disney would do, especially within his own company, often ends in disaster. This kind of rolls me around to the last point that I want to make about this. Walt Disney understood the movie that he was making was for the times that he was in. One of the primary reasons remakes tend to suck is because you can remake the movie, but you can't remake the times. What I mean by that is that it's very challenging to take a film that was made for a specific audience during a specific period of time and remake it with the same story beats. They don't ring as true because we're effectively focusing in on the story needs of the time and not the story needs of today. Of course, there can be age-old messages that will apply no matter when a story is being told, and thankfully most Disney classics are full of these, but even I can admit that there is a time and place for modernizing a film. But
This isn't even it's not even a thing of I don't even think that it's a thing of oh, the message is too dated or whatever. It's literally just that the original Snow White is just a shitty movie, and if you just made that again, it wouldn't be good. That's the most of it. that's literally it. I don't even think it has anything to do with, oh, you need to make a movie for the modern audiences, like the saying goes. It's literally just, it's a shitty movie, so they should probably write a better story. That's it.
really has to be done correctly. One thing we can credit Disney of old with is its ability to create new films that met the expectations and the needs of the audience at the time. And as it progressed through the years, the company successfully hit on society's contemporary values. But back then, the changes weren't heavy-handed or advertised like they are today, meaning people were able to enjoy the company's creations without being acutely aware that they were being force-fed an agenda. Some might call this subversive, and maybe it is, but it was clearly successful. Disney's existing problem is that its attempts to modernize these films are all wrong. And the irony is that these new modern boss ladies aren't even speaking to today's audience either. Disney is making movies for its own echo chamber, effectively creating characters that speak to what the activists at the company and those in its viewership want. The funny part is, these modern girl boss movies can still get across the female empowerment message, but that requires creating characters with actual depth. Entertainment that features strong female characters isn't exactly rare. These ladies have been popping up for decades. There are even...
This is why it's just it's just so stupid, because it's so it all just comes down to the movie's bad. And it's then why do we spend so much time arguing about whether or not you can do race swaps, or whether or not the feminist politics are bad or good, or why are we spending so much time with this retarded politics shit, when at the end of the day, we don't even disagree that the movie, if the movie's good, then the movie's good, and that's the important part. Why don't we just talk about that? Why do we waste so much time with the stupid culture war stuff? It's just so... I don't even understand. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid.
Several great shows released recently, like Blue-Eyed Samurai and Shogun, that feature some of these female characters. The issue is that in the modern era, most writers and showrunners, especially those employed by Disney, have lost the art of subtlety. When you push an agenda before a story, you get message-first storytelling, which is hardly storytelling at all. This opens the door for writing that is too often plagued with self-inserts, bizarre casting choices, and South Park's Matt Stone.
I don't think that it's because they have agendas. You know what it honestly is? Here, this is the reality, right? Something like Shogun, it's because it's a project that was born out of a genuine artistic desire to tell this story. Right? There's probably a writer that was hey, I think I can, or I don't know who the showrunner is, but he's I think I can tell Shogun for today. I have a really good idea, and I passionately want to tell this story. Whereas the way that the Little Mermaid remake and all the Disney live action remakes are born out of is Disney wants to make this movie because they want to make money. And they go, hey, writer, can you write a remake? And they go, sure, I guess. Right? It's with the Aladdin remake. It's I just don't believe you. I don't believe that Guy Ritchie was really wanted to make the Aladdin remake. I'm pretty sure they were hey, Guy Ritchie, can you do this Aladdin movie for us? And he was sure, I guess. And so that's why these movies end up feeling kind of soulless, is because there's no artistic genuine artistic desire. Like there's no humanity to them. It's like I don't think it's about having an agenda or not having an agenda. Because if you have an agenda and you genuinely want to tell that story and you're passionate about it, then it's probably not going to feel as soulless. So if anything, it's the lack of the agenda. It's the lack of the genuine, earnest desire to tell a story, which is what leads these projects to feel kind of soulless. But it's like, again, like I feel like all of this is so obvious too. But no, but it's like I don't know. People are just brain broken by the culture war. I think that's it. I feel like that has to be the problem here, right? Like I feel like I'm not saying anything revolutionary. I'm not saying anything. I'm not giving some genius fucking take.
Joan and Trey Parker call, and then storytelling, where things don't happen naturally, but happen because the writer needs them to. It stops being a tale filled with characters you can relate to and plots that you're interested in, and just becomes flat-out propaganda trying badly
How do you relate to the evil queen? She's barely in the movie. Although I guess if you've ever been jealous, like sure you can be like, yeah, I guess I was jealous once. But like her character isn't interesting. It's not fleshed out. It's not nuanced. There's no like what are you talking about?
plots that you're interested in, and just becomes flat-out propaganda trying badly to disguise itself as a story, like a wolf trying to disguise itself as a sheep by writing sheep on its sides. So, in essence, Disney has two problems here. For one, it's trying to package up a story meant for a different time and sell it to a world that's moved on past that era, and doing so in a way that only speaks to a small group of people.
That's stupid. Like, but you can absolutely tell the story of Snow White in the modern era. Like, you can absolutely tell a story about an older woman, you know, being jealous of a younger woman and her beauty or whatever. Like, we literally just got that with The Substance, by the way. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't a story for the modern era. Well, you think that like that's also like a good story is a good story. Like, what are you talking about?
Who align ideologically with whatever agenda Disney is trying to push. Ultimately, for me, it is really tragic to see Disney take yet another beloved film, and not just a beloved film, but their flagship film, the film that put them on the map, and give it the modern treatment, likely once again stripping it of what made it so magical to begin with. Of course, some of you might feel that I am making this video somewhat prematurely, given that the film hasn't even been released, and I am putting together an opinion based purely on what Rachel Zegler has said in interviews and these trailers and whatnot, but I think that Disney has demonstrated...
Yeah, and you retardedly based it off of what Rachel Zegler said.
That it doesn't care about its original source material and is going to continue creating remakes that don't stand up to the...
Yeah, and the original source material didn't care about the original source material. Like, yeah, that's what art is. It's just like, yeah, sometimes artists take a story and do their own spin on it. Like why? That's not a bad thing, inherently. That's not inherently a bad thing. I don't understand why these people exist where they're like, it needs to be the same as the original thing. I want to see the same story told over and over and over again. Oh my god. It's just like, that's just so stupid. I can't relate to it.
The originals in any way, shape, or form. So, of course, I fully understand and recognize I can't pass judgment on this film until I have seen it, but in a way, I don't feel like I really have to know that it's going to end up in the place that most of us don't like. Disney has already shown us time and time again what it intends to do. And in the end, I am once again incredibly disappointed with the way that this film is likely going to turn out, and I'm even more disappointed knowing that Disney is tarnishing its own legacy. Now, on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out...
That's also just so stupid, because it's like... What? Nothing is happening to their legacy. Nothing is happening to the original movie. It'll always be there. Like I could remake The Godfather if I wanted to, and it could be like the most dog shit movie that's ever been made, and it probably would be if I'm directing it. It's not gonna tarnish the legacy of the Francis Ford Coppola Godfather movie. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If anything, it'll shine brighter.
Using the link in the description. When you use my link, you will get 15% off site-wide. That's 15% off everything on the website, so go check them out, and big thanks to Raycon for supporting the channel. Now, open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you somebody who believes that this remake is not going to be very good because Disney's already told us that it's not going to be good? Do you think that we should give it a chance and we're all kind of passing judgment way too soon? What do you make of the horrible CGI of the dwarves or Rachel Zegler's comments about everything relating to this film? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Are you going to see it? Are you excited to see it? What do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to like this video as well as subscribing to the channel and leaving me a comment because I do read the majority of them. If you have any video suggestions, feel free to leave me them in the comments as well. And in the meantime, I hope you wonderful, pretty people stay safe and well, and I will see you in the next video.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I feel like everything being made like so ultra political and no woke bad, not woke enough. It's just like, I feel like she kind of like got the right answer like at near the end there, where she was like, there is a way to, to make a movie for modern audiences, but you have to make it good. And it's like, yeah. So then why did we waste so much time talking about like wokeness or whatever? Like, why did we waste so much time talking about how you need to be faithful to the source material, and then you end up saying that you wish it hadn't been faithful to the source material, that they should have changed the story of the prince? It's like, it's just a bunch of weird contradictions. At the end of the day, listen, I think that the Disney remakes are bad because they're not projects that are born out of genuine artistic desire. I think that's really it. Like, I don't think they're bad because it's inherently bad to remake something. I don't think they're bad because they're woke. I don't think they're bad because they're not woke enough. It's just there aren't passionate artists behind them making them. That's my opinion, at least. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.